Talofa lava, Mr. Chair. Talofa lava, everyone. He mihi nui ki te whānau of Ngāti Pākehā Ngaitirangi for the loss of Merata Mita, a great person who was associated with the city of Tamaki Makaurau and who died yesterday outside Māori TV in Auckland. And she's a great loss to this country, particularly for Ngāti Whātua ki o Rākai and others who were involved in the struggle for Takaparawhau Bastion Point, which is one of the most powerful symbols of the struggle in Auckland for the voice of the marginalised and the Indigenous marginalised against the powers that be. And that, in essence, Mr. Chair, is what some of this is about the powers that be. So I just want to acknowledge the passing of a very important woman and the loss to her whānau, which will be felt all over the Motu. So this bill, I was at the first select committee on the first bill, and it was a bit like being reading the first chapter of a novel, and you think, oh, this isn't looking very good. This novel's not really my kind of book, but maybe if I persevere, it's going to all come right. And maybe because I missed the middle bit, I thought, well, I missed the middle bit, so maybe the issues that came up by the hundreds of submitters that I heard speak in the days that I heard them speak, maybe this will change. And at the end of the book, there'll be this amazing pulling together of the threads. There'll be this miracle that will take place. But sadly, now that I'm here with the last chapter, having not read the book and just heard it reported by my colleague Dave Clendon, and having listened to the speeches today in this House, I am disappointed in the book. It is not finishing on a hopeful note, because it is actually about the loss of people's ability to participate in decision-making. And I think there's a great sense of sadness for those of us who were there at the beginning when we saw submitter after submitter, and many of them not individuals, but community groups, talking about the issues involved with the bill and what they wanted. And from listening to people today, I gather that those people also submitted, the more than 786 submitters, half of which who were heard orally, in this final bill. So clearly there was a sustained opposition and there was a sustained raising of the issues. And listening, Mr. Chair, is not the same as hearing. And hearing is not the same as acting. And actually, I'm very sorry that we now have a so-called super city. It's not particularly super, this law. Or if it's super, for whom is it going to be super? For me, it sounds like it's party central for the elite. Well, that's great. That's what the elite really need. They really need party central. But actually, for people living in the streets of Manukau or Waitakere or North Shore, who actually were pretty happy with their relationship with their district council, it isn't super. And I noticed when humans identify a problem, and there was definitely problems, regional problems, with decision-making in Tamaki Makaurau, and no one denied it, we needed to make change. But if you go back to the ancient Greeks, we're always consolidating power, and then we find out that consolidating power doesn't work, and then we collapse again. And this has happened throughout history. And so I don't know how many years it's going to be before we go through the same process again. If we consolidated power in Auckland, we'll have to go back over the same ground and end up in the same place. One of the central issues that concerns me about this bill is to do with te tiriti o Waitangi and the failure to address the fundamental issue of tangata whenua representation. And this issue was completely ignored through the long-term process from the beginning of the bill to the end. And it did start with a march in Auckland in the rain where we marched and we called for justice. And it does concern me this morning because the government didn't listen. Instead we have the ghastly spectre of John Banks claiming he wants to embrace a non-voting Māori advisor. That's the kiss of death. To be embraced by John Banks, who it was an incredibly patronising statement. We don't need to have a vote. We don't need a seat at the table. We don't let alone recognise Te Treaty. We will have a token advisor who will be embraced by the mayor. Now, an advisory body is always problematic because of the word advisory means can be ignored. That's what it means. I've been on advisory bodies and we always got ignored. And it's very interesting to go around local government throughout Aotearoa and actually see who gets ignored on advisory bodies. And many people who've had that invidious role of being the iwi liaison person have ended up physically and spiritually unwell.
I call you